Have you ever wondered why house prices keep soaring even in times of economic downturn? It's a question that baffles many, and yet, it's a reality we see unfold time and again. Welcome to the paradoxical world of the housing market, a place where logic often seems to take a back seat, and the unexpected becomes the norm. The housing market, like any other market, operates on the principles of supply and demand. But unlike most markets, it's influenced by a unique set of factors, making it a complex puzzle to decode. Here, the prices do not merely reflect the interplay of supply and demand. They are also shaped by interest rates, the broader economy, and a host of other factors. One might expect that during an economic downturn, when incomes are squeezed and job security is uncertain, demand for houses would wane, leading to a decline in prices. But in reality, the opposite often happens. Prices continue to rise even when the economy is in a slump. This seeming contradiction is what makes the housing market a puzzle. In order to make sense of this puzzle, it's essential to understand the concept of housing market cycles. The housing market, like the economy, moves in cycles. There are periods of growth, followed by slowdowns and then recovery. These cycles are influenced by a variety of factors, including changes in population, shifts in the economy, fluctuations in interest rates, and government policies. However, the housing market cycles do not always align with the broader economic cycles. There may be times when the economy is in a downturn, but the housing market is in a growth phase. Likewise, there could be times when the economy is booming, but the housing market is in a slowdown. This disconnect between the housing market and the economy is one of the key aspects that contribute to the housing market puzzle. It's a conundrum that can only be unraveled by gaining a deep understanding of the various factors at play and how they interact with each other. Unraveling the housing market puzzle requires an understanding of these various factors and their interplay. So let's dive deeper and explore the intricate dynamics of the housing market. What drives the never-ending dance between demand and supply in the housing market? Well, let's dive into it. The housing market, much like any other, is a stage for the eternal ballet of demand and supply. But what influences these dancers? On the demand side, we have factors like population changes, income levels, and consumer preferences. Imagine a city where the population is booming. More people equals more demand for homes, right? Or consider when income levels rise. When people have more money, they can afford more or better housing, pushing demand up. Just as important are consumer preferences. Say there's a shift in preference towards urban living. This would increase demand for housing in city centers. On the other hand, if people start preferring larger homes with gardens, demand for suburban housing might tick up. The choices people make about where and how they want to live can greatly sway demand in the housing market. But we can't forget the other dancer in this tango, the supply side. Factors such as construction costs, government regulations, and land availability play a pivotal role here. For instance, higher construction costs can reduce the supply of new homes as builders may be less inclined to build. Government regulations are another key player. Strict zoning laws can limit where and how many homes can be built, potentially restricting supply. And let's not overlook land availability. In areas where land is scarce, it becomes challenging to increase the housing supply, no matter how high the demand might be. So as you can see, the housing market is not just about bricks and mortar, it's a complex dance of various factors, each affecting the other, creating a rhythm that is as dynamic as it is intricate. The housing market is a delicate equilibrium, with demand and supply constantly adjusting to each other's movements. The intricate dance between demand and supply sets the rhythm of the housing market. It's a dance that never stops, shaping our cities and neighborhoods, and ultimately determining where we call home. Ever considered how a small percentage point change in interest rates can send ripples through the housing market? Yes, indeed, interest rates, those seemingly innocuous figures, are in fact pivotal players in the real estate drama. Let's start by understanding what interest rates are. Simply put, they are the cost of borrowing money. Banks lend us money to buy houses, and we repay them with a little extra. That extra is the interest. And the rate at which this interest is charged is, you guessed it, the interest rate. Now, how does this tie into the housing market? Well, when interest rates are low, it's cheaper to borrow money. This means that mortgages, loans specifically for buying houses, become more affordable. So, more people can afford to borrow money to buy a house. This increases the demand for houses, which in turn can drive up house prices. On the flip side, when interest rates are high, borrowing becomes more expensive. Mortgages become less affordable and fewer people can afford to buy. This decreases the demand for houses, which can lead to a drop in house prices. But here's where it gets interesting. Lower interest rates don't always lead to higher house prices, and vice versa. Other factors like the state of the economy, the availability of housing, and consumer confidence also play a role. So it's a bit like trying to predict the weather. You know that more sunshine usually means it's warmer, but it's not the only factor. Wind direction, cloud cover, and a host of other conditions also come into play. In conclusion, interest rates are like the temperature gauge of the housing market. They don't control the weather, but they give an indication of what's to come. And just like the weather, the housing market can be unpredictable, and just a small change can have a big impact. Interest rates, though seemingly insignificant, hold a powerful sway over the housing market. Opening. How does the larger economy weigh in on the housing market dynamics? Understanding the housing market can often feel like trying to solve a complex puzzle with constantly shifting pieces. One of these crucial pieces is the larger economy. So let's take a closer look at how different economic factors influence the housing market. First up, employment rates. When employment levels are high and people are earning steady incomes, they're more likely to buy houses. They have the financial stability to take on a mortgage and the confidence to invest in their future. On the flip side, when unemployment rates rise, people may hesitate to take on large financial commitments like buying a house. This can lead to a decrease in housing demand, causing prices to stagnate or even decline. Next, let's consider the role of gross domestic product, commonly known as GDP. GDP is the total value of goods produced and services provided in a country during 1 year. It's a key indicator of economic health. When GDP growth is strong, it often signals a robust economy with high consumer confidence and spending power. This can stimulate demand for housing and drive prices upward. Conversely, a contraction in GDP suggests an economic downturn, which can suppress housing demand and put downward pressure on prices. Lastly, we come to inflation. Inflation erodes purchasing power. When inflation rates are high, the cost of living increases, and people might find it harder to save for a down payment or afford mortgage repayments. This can dampen demand for housing and lead to a softer market. However, if inflation is kept in check, it can actually stimulate the housing market by encouraging people to invest in tangible assets like property, which can serve as a hedge against inflation. In conclusion, employment rates, GDP growth, and inflation are just three of the many economic factors that can influence the housing market. A thriving economy can boost housing demand and prices, while an economic downturn can have the opposite effect. Closing. The health of the economy casts a long shadow over the housing market. So, is the housing market a simple game of numbers, or a complex web of factors? As we've journeyed through the intricacies of the housing market, it's become abundantly clear that it's far more than just a numbers game. It's a labyrinth of interconnected elements, each one influencing the other in an intricate dance of cause and effect. Let's take a moment to revisit our journey. We started by piecing together the housing market puzzle, examining how the myriad of factors come together to create the market we see. It's not just about bricks and mortar, but the people who live within them, their needs, desires, and the economic circumstances that shape their decisions. Then we delved into the demand-supply dance, a delicate balance that oscillates with the rhythm of population growth, employment rates, and even societal trends. Like a seesaw, when one side goes up, the other often comes down, maintaining a balance that can be as precarious as it is predictable. Next, we explored the powerful role of interest rates. These seemingly simple percentages can send ripples through the housing market, affecting everything from mortgage affordability to investor behavior. They're like the conductor of an orchestra, setting the tempo and influencing the performance of all the other players. We also looked at the broader economy and its impact on the housing market. Economic health, inflation, wage growth, and even political stability can all have profound effects on the market. They're like the weather patterns that influence the ebb and flow of the ocean tides. In short, the housing market is a complex tapestry woven with threads of demand and supply, interest rates, and economic factors. Each thread is vital, and changing one can alter the entire picture. It's this complexity that makes the housing market such a fascinating subject, a conundrum that challenges even the most astute economists and savvy investors. So, as we conclude this journey, remember that the housing market is not a simple game of numbers. It's a dynamic, ever-changing landscape, influenced by a myriad of factors. The housing market, a conundrum wrapped in complexity, continues to fascinate and challenge us.